Hello, Abraham. Firstly, just want to say there's so much love for you. This morning, I met some new friends here, and I was just telling them that I finally got you. It took me, I've been listening to you for 2 years, and last week in San Francisco, you were talking about calibration, and something just shifted in me, and what I realized was it's so easy when I hear your voice, Esther's voice, your voice, the vibration you hold, and if I just listen without even knowing the words you're saying sometimes to people, just the energy alone, the resonance of it is everything for me.
Well, that's a nice thing, but you could go a little deeper and focus on the feeling, which you find often, whether you're listening to us or watching a sunset or a child or an animal. In other words, there are all kinds of things that you can calibrate to.
Yeah. What I find the most beautiful about using you as a permission slip, if I may say, is the feeling of sureness and power that I feel is I tasted in my inner being. That's just reflected here so strongly whenever I hear you. The thing that I wanted to ask about that, which is really important for me, is now that even if I don't listen actively or I'm not here, it's just that voice comes in my head and helps me, like immediately, like it's like that, like something changed.
So what happened is, it doesn't matter how it happened, but you practice the calibration of your source enough that now it's dominant within you. That's the nice thing about this. Once you understand a few basic laws of the universe, and once you understand what your emotions mean, which are your indicators to help you to calibrate, then you've got it. And then it doesn't matter where you are or what the conditions are around you. You know what the feeling is and you can calibrate.
Yes.
It's a funny thing because we've been teaching meditation as the most powerful tool for calibration, because when you quiet your mind, you stop thought, and when you stop thought, you stop the attraction of other hindering thoughts. And when you're not doing any of that, your vibration rises. You allow yourself to naturally calibrate to your inner being. Now let's talk about that in relationship to what we just said to you here today. Your source energy, your inner being, is gathering the cooperative components. So if you've quieted your mind, you are no longer an uncooperative component. And so now your inner being, and you are essential to this equation because you are the one that did the asking. And so in the moment that you stop resistance, you become drawn in as a cooperative component, and your vibration rises. When your vibration rises, what you just described happens to you, because the mind of your inner being is now your mind. In other words, it just flows seamlessly from that knowing right into your translation process.
Yes, I totally feel it.
Yeah.
You were talking about getting ahead of it, and I wanted to use an example.
Talking about getting out ahead of it, rather than walking into something and then having the discomfort of having to overcome the situation. If you're out ahead of it, when you walk into it, there's nothing to overcome because it doesn't get you down.
That's true. That's true. Speaking of meditation, before I started listening to you, I was into non-duality, different types of meditation techniques and things, which have been very helpful. Sometimes during the day, is there ever a situation where you might be doing too much of meditation? Because
if you feel bored, yes.
Bored, yes. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You didn't come here to quiet your mind. You came to focus and to attract and to feel the exhilaration of the universal forces gathering things together on your behalf. We teach meditation to quiet your mind, to allow a rising of vibration. But when your vibration has risen, focus and attract with that, you see. Humans, they make work of everything. We don't encourage more than 15 or 20 minutes a day of meditation. That's enough. Anything else is just escape.
Yeah. So what if I feel sometimes in the day that feeling of boredom or numbness because let's say I was contemplating too much? What's the best thing to do?
Well, you won't feel boredom from contemplating too much. If you're contemplating, then thoughts are active and attracting, and you're going to find yourself more and more stimulated. If you've quieted your mind, that's a different thing. Give us an example of the situation. Why did you sit to meditate to begin with?
Let's say I meditated in the morning.
Yes.
And then during the day, I noticed something negative coming up I felt something negative. To do some sort of process, that's where I get bored.
Let us give you one that you might not find so boring. So let's say the situation has come up. What is it?
Something about a past relationship, a hurt comes up.
Past relationship or a current relationship? Somebody hurts your feelings?
Yes.
What we've been encouraging Esther to do, get a notebook, one that opens easily, that lays flat when you open it. And on the left side of your page, just make a brief statement of what happened. So the situation is, what happened?
My partner hurt my feelings.
My partner hurt my feelings. About?
They let the relationship go too soon.
And I feel
rejected.
I feel rejected.
It's not active right now, but
I feel rejected and misunderstood.
Misunderstood. I wish he would have given it a chance.
All right. Disregarded, misunderstood. That's pretty strong. What this means is something has triggered these thoughts about this situation. And without even realizing it, you are now using this situation for calibration. And you're calibrating, which is being described by words like dishonored or disrespected or misunderstood. And it doesn't matter how often that happened or how big or small a piece that was in your overall life. When you're focused upon it, you're calibrating to it and away from your inner being who would never calibrate to that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that was really brief. You did that in about less than a minute usually. You made your statement, you said how you felt, and then you turned to the other side of this page. Now, on the other side of the page, right at the top of the page, however, I dominantly feel about my life these things. So by moving over there quickly, how do I really feel? Do I feel misunderstood in life in general? Do I feel heard by the universe?
Yes, very.
Emphatically. So I feel heard. I am blessed. I feel blessed. I feel like I'm known. My world goes well. And just with that little bit of turning of attention to who you really are, you've laid new claim to who you really are, and you've put that in the perspective of something that is insignificant and that doesn't matter. In other words, you chose what you're going to calibrate to. And of those two piles that we were describing out there on that football field, you chose through this exercise to be under the influence of your inner being who sees you. Now, what happens often when you start writing like that is that not only do you not feel bored by the process, you get enlivened by it. You find yourself being thrilled by life. You find yourself just sort of rampaging on your page about how good life really is and how much fun you're having. And then thoughts that harmonize with those general feelings begin to become more specific and more specific until you're actually acknowledging how really, really, really good your life is. And then in that moment, you have returned to who you are, and that situation is momentarily irrelevant. Now, it might come up again. It might come up 100 more times. But when you have time, if you do this calibration process, in time, it will not come up at all. We've been saying to all of you for a while that when you get your feelings hurt about something, if you can change the subject easily, do it. But if it's something that hurt you deeply and you can't change the subject easily, you got to clean it up. And the way you clean it up is with this general process, because if you try to clean it up with specifics, you'll just keep activating the specifics of what you don't want. It never will improve. If somebody hurts your feelings and they're not meaningful in your life, you could just never think about them again, and that would be that. But if it's someone that you can't not continue to think about and it keeps coming up, then this calibration process is a good one.
I think this is perfect because I think what I was doing was meditating, and that wasn't helping because it made me...
It helps in this way. When you meditate, you quiet your thoughts and your vibration rises. But it doesn't change the frequency of that situation. calibrating does. Because remember these words, your vibration is where you last left it on that subject. So when you deliberately calibrate with an active mind, not a quieted mind, now you leave it in a different place every time you calibrate it, till in time you've calibrated it to who you really are. And what happens, it's so interesting, sometimes once you do that, the very situation that was bothering you to begin with begins to evolve and change, because it was attraction then and it's attraction now. It's attraction, 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 attraction.
Actually, one last thing I want to mention, thank you for saying that, because as I was doing something similar by listening to you and calibrating since last week, I felt that if that situation hadn't happened, I would have never been able to hear you so well, because the hurt was what was motivating me to, okay, I've been listening to Abraham for 2 years, and so in a way gratitude was coming for that. Yes,
that's always a pretty good thing to acknowledge. Well, this thing that I didn't want to happen did catapult me into this wanting. But don't get too carried away with that either, because that sort of leads you to a human belief that is bogus and flawed, and that is, it takes pain to have gain. Don't let it go there. Just say instead, I came to sift and sort, and the sorting process is a good process, not a bad process. And negative emotion is a good tool, not a bad tool. Negative emotion is an indicator that serves me, not something that I'm doing wrong. And this is another thing that we would like all of you to acknowledge and embrace, and eventually come to love as much as we do. The contrast that you think you don't want to live is the very thing that is causing the expansion of your vortex. If there were not an expanding vortex for you to point toward, you could never feel the exhilaration of that motion forward. Oh, it is so delicious when life causes you to ask for something that you don't have, and then you find a way to calibrate to its vibrational reality, and then you get to watch those thoughts turn to things. You came into this environment because you are a creator, and you're creating in a world with real things that you want to see and hear and smell and taste and touch. We just want you to get your priorities straight. We want you to care most about alignment, which leads to seeing and hearing and smelling and tasting and touching, not bent out of shape because you can't see it yet or hear it yet or smell it or taste it or touch it, which holds you in the place of deprivation from it, and you can't get there from there. Does that make sense? You got to find a way of soothing yourself. And what happens sometimes to you, you're fun to watch, is that somebody hurts your feelings and you calibrate and feel better, and then they do it again, and you calibrate and you feel better, and then they do it again, and then you calibrate and feel better, and then you think, why do I have to do all this work? Why isn't it getting better? Well, you're taking a score too soon, because there's momentum. Some of your relationships, you've got a lot of momentum going, and so it takes a little while. If you saw someone on a ski slope, lost control, tumbling, not skiing anymore, tumbling down the slope, and you see it and you just yell, stop! Does he? Or does the momentum keep carrying him down the slope? Now, eventually he will stop. Maybe a broken pile. Eventually he will stop. And then that's the time for calibration. After you're back on your feet, don't try to calibrate in the middle of a tumble. Just relax and let the momentum take you where it's going to take you. But if you keep tumbling over the same thing over and over again, we'd calibrate it. We would. And then we would take joy in our personal awareness of its evolution. Yeah. Good?
thank you.
Really good. This is a very short period.